The morning sun was just beginning to rise, spreading a soft golden light across the city. The streets were already busy, full of people rushing to work, taxis honking, and vendors setting up their stalls. Among them was a young black woman named Tanya. She walked quickly, pulling her small suitcase behind her, her heart full of excitement. Today was special. After months of saving and working long hours, she was finally going to visit her mother in another city. It had been almost 2 years since she last saw her, and Tanya could hardly wait to surprise her. She checked her phone for the time and smiled. She was early. Tanya had planned everything carefully. Her taxi was booked, her clothes neatly packed, and her travel documents safely tucked inside a brown leather purse. She even made a small snack for the journey, a habit her mother had taught her. She always said, "You never know when you'll need a little something to keep you going." As the taxi sped through the roads, Tanya looked out the window, watching the world pass by. She thought about how much she had been through lately, working double shifts at the cafe, paying off bills, and still managing to save enough for this trip. It wasn't easy, but she was proud of herself. Her mother had raised her to be strong and kind, and those words always echoed in her heart. Do good, even when no one is watching. When she reached the airport, Tanya felt a rush of excitement. The automatic doors opened and she stepped inside, pulling her suitcase along. The air was filled with the sound of rolling luggage, boarding announcements, and families hugging each other goodbye. She took a deep breath and smiled. This was the start of something good. She walked toward the check-in counter, humming quietly. The line was long, but she didn't mind. She scrolled through her phone, checking messages from her mom, who still didn't know she was coming. Tanya had planned to show up at her doorstep as a surprise. She imagined her mother's face when she'd opened the door. It made her giggle softly. As Tanya reached the front of the line, she heard someone behind her muttering in confusion. Turning slightly, she saw an old man standing a few feet away. He looked lost, holding a small bag in one hand and a ticket in the other. His clothes were simple and neat, but his hands trembled slightly as he tried to read the signs. People were walking past him quickly, no one paying attention. Tanya felt a tug in her heart. She turned back to her own task, but something didn't feel right. The old man looked so helpless, scanning the area as if searching for someone. The airport staff nearby were busy and no one seemed to notice. Tanya bit her lip, torn between helping him and catching her flight. Her flight time was close and she didn't want to risk being late. But deep inside, she couldn't ignore what she saw. Finally, she sighed, pulled her suitcase aside, and walked toward the man. "Excuse me, sir," she said gently. "Do you need help?" The old man looked up, his eyes kind but tired. "Oh dear, I think I'm lost. They told me to check in at counter C, but I can't seem to find it." "My eyesight isn't what it used to be," Tanya smiled warmly. "Don't worry. I'll help you. Let's find it together." She took his ticket and looked around. The counter he needed was actually quite far on the other side of the hall. Without thinking twice, she grabbed his small bag and guided him carefully through the crowd. The man walked slowly, stopping every now and then to catch his breath. Tanya didn't rush him. She kept her pace steady, chatting lightly to make him feel comfortable. "What's your destination?" she asked. "Oh, I'm flying to Chicago," he replied. "My daughter lives there. Haven't seen her in a while." Tanya smiled. "That's wonderful. Family visits are the best," the old man nodded. "Yes, but I don't travel much anymore. Everything feels so different these days, machines everywhere, people rushing like the world is ending." Tanya laughed softly. "You're right. It can be overwhelming. But don't worry. I'll make sure you get to your flight safely." After several minutes of walking and waiting, they finally reached his counter. The staff greeted him politely and Tanya helped him hand over his documents. When the process was done, he turned to her, holding her hand gently. "Thank you, my dear," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "You're very kind. Not many young people stop to help anymore." Tanya smiled shyly. "It's no problem at all, sir. I'm just glad you're okay." She checked the time on her phone and her heart skipped. She was running late. Her flight's boarding time was approaching fast. She quickly said goodbye, wished him a safe journey, and rushed back through the crowd, pulling her suitcase behind her. Her steps grew faster as she reached the security gate, her heart pounding. But when she reached her gate, she froze. The screen above it read, "Boarding closed." The flight attendants were already closing the doors. "Wait, please," Tanya called out, running toward them. "I'm supposed to be on this flight. The attendant checked her ticket, but shook her head apologetically. "I'm sorry, ma'am. The gate is closed. You'll need to go to the service desk to rebook." Tanya stood there breathless and disappointed. All her excitement turned into a wave of frustration. She had been so careful, so prepared, but she couldn't bring herself to regret helping that old man. She just took a deep breath and nodded. "All right," she said quietly. She walked to a nearby bench and sat down, her suitcase beside her. For a moment she just stared at the floor, thinking about how everything had changed so quickly. People rushed past her, dragging their luggage, laughing and chatting, but Tanya sat still. She felt a mix of sadness and calm. A lady sitting nearby looked at her and said kindly, "Missed your flight?" Tanya smiled faintly. "Yeah, I helped someone who needed me and I guess time slipped away." The woman nodded slowly. "Sometimes life tests us like that. But don't worry, good things come back around." Tanya thought about that for a while. She opened her bag, took out the small sandwich she'd packed and took a quiet bite. The taste reminded her of home, of her mother's kitchen, of laughter, of simpler times. She looked out through the large glass window at the planes taking off one after another. For a moment she wondered where the old man was now. Had he found his seat? Did he make it to his flight on time? She smiled to herself, imagining him sitting comfortably, maybe thinking about her too. She didn't know it yet. But that one small act of kindness, helping a stranger when no one else did, was about to change her life in a way she could never have imagined. As the airport announcements echoed through the hall, Tanya leaned back in her seat, calm and patient. Maybe she had missed her journey, but deep inside, she felt she had done something right. The world moved fast around her, but for once, she didn't mind slowing down. Tanya sat quietly on the airport bench, her mind full of mixed thoughts. The noise of people talking and announcements calling out flight numbers filled the air, but she barely heard any of it. Her heart still felt heavy. She had missed her flight, the one she had waited so long to take. She had dreamed about that moment for months, and now, all because she stopped to help someone, it was gone. She sighed and looked down at her boarding pass, now useless. She had no idea what to do next. Her eyes wandered toward the big digital clock above the terminal. It was still early in the morning, but she already felt exhausted. A staff member passed by and Tanya stopped her politely. "Excuse me, miss, can you please tell me how to rebook my flight?" The woman gave her a professional smile. "You'll need to go to the airline service counter just down that way. They'll help you." Tanya thanked her and picked up her bag again. The line at the service counter was long, but she waited patiently, her mind replaying what had just happened with the old man. She didn't even know his name. He seemed gentle, maybe lonely, but there was something about him that felt calm and familiar, like someone's kind grandfather. When her turn came, she explained everything to the lady behind the counter. The woman listened, nodded, and then said softly, "I'm sorry you missed your flight, ma'am. We can get you another seat on the next one, but there will be a rebooking fee." Tanya bit her lip. The fee was more than she expected. Her savings were tight. This trip had already cost her a lot. She wanted to protest, but she knew it wasn't the employee's fault. "All right," she said quietly. "I'll see what I can do." The lady smiled kindly. "There might be another flight in about 3 hours. If something opens up, I'll let you know." Tanya nodded and walked away, finding a quiet corner near the large glass windows. She sat down and rested her chin on her hand, looking out at the planes. One by one, they rolled across the runway, their engines roaring as they took off into the bright sky. Each plane she saw made her heart ache a little more. She imagined being on one of them, flying toward her mother's arms, laughing, telling her how she made it. Instead, she was stuck here. Still deep down, she didn't regret helping the old man. Something inside her told her that kindness always mattered, even if it came at the wrong time. As she waited, Tanya pulled out her phone and texted her friend, explaining what had happened. Her friend replied, "You did the right thing. Flights can be replaced, but good deeds? Not everyone does those anymore." That made Tanya smile a little. Maybe this wasn't such a bad day after all. A few hours passed slowly. She walked around the airport shops looking at souvenirs she couldn't afford, watched families reuniting and business travelers typing on their laptops. Everything felt like a movie she was just watching from the side. She was sipping water from a paper cup when a young airline employee approached her. He was holding a clipboard and looking around as if searching for someone. "Excuse me," he said politely, "are you Miss Tanya?" She blinked in surprise. "Yes, that's me," he smiled. "Please come with me to the counter. We've arranged something for you." She followed him, confused but curious. When they reached the counter, the same woman from earlier was there, smiling warmly. "Good news," she said. "We've got you a seat on the next flight, no charge." Tanya stared at her in disbelief. "Really, no fee?" "That's right," the woman replied. "It's already taken care of." Tanya frowned slightly. "Taken care of by who?" The woman looked at her computer screen but didn't answer clearly. "Someone requested it on your behalf," she said softly. "I don't have more details, but you're good to go." For a moment, Tanya was speechless. Who would do that for her? She didn't know anyone here. Then for some reason, her mind went to the old man. Could it be him? She shook her head quickly. That didn't make sense. He probably didn't even know her full name. Still, she couldn't help smiling at the thought. "Thank you so much," Tanya said gratefully. "Your flight will start boarding in about 40 minutes, the woman said. "You can relax until then." Tanya nodded and went to find a seat near the gate. She opened her purse and took out a small travel mirror, trying to fix her hair and make herself look more presentable. The tiredness in her eyes showed, but there was also a calm glow there. Sometimes life had strange ways of rewarding people. As she waited, she saw a few children playing nearby, their laughter echoing through the hall. It made her heart feel lighter. She leaned back, closed her eyes for a moment, and whispered to herself, "Everything happens for a reason." After a while, the boarding call for her flight came through the speakers. Tanya stood up, picked up her bag, and joined the line. She smiled at the attendants, showed her ticket, and stepped into the narrow walkway leading to the plane. The air inside smelled of fresh coffee and clean fabric. She found her seat and settled in, putting her bag under the seat in front of her. As she looked out the small window, her mind drifted back to the old man again. She wondered if he had reached his daughter safely. Maybe he was already at his destination, telling someone about the young woman who helped him when no one else did. The plane started moving slowly, preparing to take off. Tanya felt that familiar flutter in her stomach. She had always loved flying. It made her feel like the world was big but full of endless possibilities. She whispered a short prayer of thanks and leaned her head back. Just then, the passenger sitting beside her spoke. "You seem relieved," the woman said with a friendly smile. Tanya chuckled softly. "Yes, I missed my earlier flight, but somehow I got lucky with this one." "Lucky?" the woman repeated. "Maybe someone up there is watching out for you," Tanya laughed. "Maybe. Or maybe kindness finds its own way back." They both smiled, and the woman returned to her book. Tanya looked out the window again as the plane sped up and lifted off the ground. The city below grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared behind the clouds. Somewhere between the sky and her thoughts, she found peace. She had missed one flight, but she had caught something far more meaningful. A reminder that doing good always came back, even when least expected. When the flight attendant came by with refreshments, Tanya politely declined, still lost in thought. She imagined her mother's surprise again, her warm hug, the smell of home-cooked food. She couldn't wait to get there. Hours passed, and the flight landed safely at her destination. As she stepped out, she felt lighter, as if she had left her worries behind. She didn't know that her story wasn't over yet, that the old man she helped was not just an ordinary traveler, but for now, she simply smiled, grateful for the strange twist of the day. Back at the airport she left behind. Somewhere in a private lounge, the old man was having tea. He looked out the window, watching planes come and go. One of the airline managers approached him respectfully. "Sir, everything has been arranged for the young woman you mentioned," the manager said. "She's on the next flight, no charge." The old man nodded slowly, a faint smile forming on his lips. "Good, she has a kind heart. People like her should never be left behind," the manager smiled. "Should we make any note on her profile, sir?" "Not yet," the old man replied softly. "Let's see how life brings her back to me." As Tanya's plane soared through the clouds, she had no idea that the very man she helped, the one she thought she'd never see again, was the reason she was sitting there peacefully, her ticket paid, her journey restored. And though she didn't know it yet, that simple act of kindness would lead to a meeting that would change everything she thought she knew about fate and generosity. When Tanya landed at her destination, the first thing she did was take a deep breath. The air felt different, cooler, and carried a light scent of rain. She pulled her suitcase through the busy terminal, still feeling tired but strangely peaceful. Her phone buzzed with a few missed calls from her mother, who didn't know she was coming. Tanya smiled to herself. The surprise would still work. She went to a small cafe inside the airport to grab a cup of tea before heading out. As she waited for her order, her thoughts wandered back to the morning. She could still see the old man's face, the soft wrinkles around his eyes, the gentle smile when she helped him. She wondered where he was now. Was he safe? Did he find his daughter? She hoped so. The memory made her heart warm. She had lost a flight but gained something she couldn't describe, a quiet satisfaction that she had done the right thing. Still, a small voice inside her whispered that maybe luck wouldn't always favor her. Life didn't usually reward small kindnesses right away. As she sipped her tea, Tanya noticed a small boy struggling with his backpack near the door. Without thinking, she stood up and helped him open the zipper. The boy's mother smiled at her gratefully. Tanya laughed lightly. "Seems like today's my day to help people," she said. The woman chuckled and said, "Maybe you just have that kind of heart." That comment stayed with Tanya. Maybe she did. Her mother always told her that the world needed more people who cared, even when it wasn't easy. After finishing her tea, Tanya stepped outside and called a taxi. The drive to her mother's house took about an hour, and she spent most of the ride looking out the window. The city looked familiar yet new. The same shops she remembered from years ago were still there, though some had changed names. Children were playing in the streets, their laughter echoing through the alleys. As the taxi turned onto her mother's street, Tanya's heart began to beat faster. She imagined her mother's reaction, the shock, the joy, maybe even a few tears. She hadn't told her she was coming because she wanted it to be a true surprise. When the car stopped in front of a small house with white curtains and a flower pot by the door, Tanya felt a wave of emotion. She paid the driver, took her bag, and walked up to the door. She knocked gently at first, then a little louder. After a few moments, the door opened. Her mother stood there wearing a faded blue house dress, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Tanya?" she whispered. Tanya smiled and threw her arms around her. "Surprise, Mama." Her mother laughed and hugged her tightly. "Oh my goodness. I can't believe you're here." She touched Tanya's face as if making sure it was real. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming?" "I wanted to surprise you," Tanya said, laughing through her tears. They went inside and the house smelled exactly the same, warm, comforting, and full of memories. The small table still had the same floral cover, and the radio in the corner was playing soft old songs. Her mother made tea just like she always did, and they sat together catching up on everything that had happened. Tanya told her about her work, the busy days, and how much she missed home. Her mother listened quietly, smiling, sometimes shaking her head when Tanya described her long hours. "And the flight?" her mother asked. "Was everything smooth?" Tanya hesitated for a second, then smiled. "Well, not exactly. I kind of missed my first flight." Her mother looked surprised. "Missed it? How come?" Tanya told her everything. The old man who needed help, how she guided him to the counter, and how she ended up missing her flight because of it. Her mother listened without interrupting, her eyes full of emotion. When Tanya finished, her mother reached out and held her hand. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "You followed your heart. That's more important than any schedule." Tanya smiled. "I know, Mama, but for a moment I was so sad. I thought I had ruined everything." Her mother shook her head. "Good deeds don't go unseen, my dear. Life has a funny way of returning kindness when you least expect it." Tanya leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. She wanted to believe that. Maybe the universe had already started working in her favor. After all, someone had paid for her next flight. She still didn't know who it was, but she couldn't stop thinking it might be the old man. That night, Tanya couldn't sleep. She lay in bed listening to the crickets outside. The house was quiet except for the ticking of the wall clock. She stared at the ceiling and thought about the old man again. His calm voice, the way he thanked her, it all replayed in her mind. She wished she had asked his name or at least said goodbye properly. Meanwhile, in another part of the country, that same old man was sitting in his large living room, surrounded by books and photos. His daughter sat beside him talking about her day, but his mind kept going back to the young woman from the airport. He had met many people in his life, but something about her had touched his heart. She didn't help him for attention or reward. She did it because she cared. That was rare these days. He had made a quiet decision right after she left him. He had asked his assistant to find out who she was and to make sure she didn't pay for her next flight. As he sat there sipping tea, his daughter noticed his thoughtful expression. "Dad, what are you thinking about?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Just someone who reminded me that kindness still exists in this world." His daughter smiled. "That's a nice thought," he nodded. "It is. Maybe I'll see her again one day." Back at her mother's house, Tanya woke up early the next morning. The sun streamed through the window and she stretched, feeling rested. Her mother was already in the kitchen making breakfast. The smell of pancakes filled the air. They ate together and laughed about old times. Tanya felt peaceful, but a part of her still wondered about the strange turn of events at the airport. She wanted to know who had helped her get that free ticket, but there was no way to find out. After breakfast, she checked her phone. There was a message from the airline thanking her for flying with them, and a short note that said, "We hope to see you again soon." She smiled and deleted it. At that moment, she didn't think much of it, but it would matter later. The next few days passed happily. Tanya helped her mother around the house, cooked, and visited neighbors who hadn't seen her in years. She laughed more than she had in months. Sometimes, when she sat by the window in the evening, she thought about how quickly life could change. One missed flight, one act of kindness, and everything felt different. But just when she thought the story had ended, fate had other plans. 1 week later, as she packed her things to return home, Tanya received a call from the airline. The voice on the other end was polite. "Hello, ma'am. We're calling to confirm your return flight. There's been a slight change in seating. You've been moved to a different section at no additional cost." Tanya was surprised. "Oh, what kind of change?" "You've been upgraded to first class," the woman said with a cheerful tone. Tanya blinked. "First class? That must be a mistake. I didn't request that." "It's not a mistake, ma'am," the voice said kindly. "It's been approved by special request." Tanya felt a strange chill of surprise. Once again, someone had done something for her without her asking. She thanked the caller and hung up, her mind spinning. Who could it be and why? Her mother noticed her thoughtful face. "What's wrong, dear?" Tanya smiled softly. "Nothing, Mama, just something unexpected happened again." Her mother chuckled. "Maybe someone up there really is watching over you." Tanya laughed too, but deep down, she knew this was more than coincidence. As she prepared to leave for the airport, she looked at her reflection in the mirror. The same woman stared back, strong, hopeful, and still believing that kindness mattered. She didn't know that her next journey would lead her straight into another unexpected meeting, the one that would finally reveal who the old man really was. The morning of Tanya's return flight was calm and quiet. The sky was painted in shades of pink and orange, and a cool breeze moved through the streets. Tanya stood by the window of her mother's small house, holding a cup of tea, watching the birds fly past. Her suitcase sat ready by the door. She felt peaceful but curious. She still couldn't stop thinking about that mysterious upgrade the airline had given her. Her mother came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. "Are you sure you have everything, dear?" she asked gently. "Yes, Mama," Tanya said, smiling. "I double-checked everything last night." Her mother nodded and looked at her daughter with soft eyes. "I still can't believe you're going back so soon. These few days passed so fast." "I know," Tanya said quietly, "but I'll visit again soon, I promise." Her mother hugged her tightly. "Take care of yourself and remember, keep that good heart of yours. The world needs it." Tanya smiled against her mother's shoulder. "I will, Mama, always." After saying goodbye, she took a taxi to the airport. The driver played soft music and Tanya gazed out the window, lost in thought. Her mind drifted back to that old man she had helped days ago. Something about him stayed with her, his calmness, his gentle way of speaking. She wondered again if he had been the one behind all these small miracles that followed her. When the taxi stopped at the airport, Tanya stepped out and felt the familiar rush of travelers around her. She checked in at the counter, expecting a mix-up about her seat. But the staff smiled and said, "Yes, Miss Tanya, you've been confirmed in first class. Please proceed to gate 14. Her heart skipped. It was true. She thanked the woman and made her way to security, feeling slightly nervous. Tanya had never flown in first class before. She'd always walked past those wide seats and quiet sections. thinking they were meant for people who lived in a different world. But today, somehow, she was one of them. As she boarded, the flight attendants greeted her warmly and guided her to her seat. The moment she stepped into the first-class cabin, she felt the difference. The lights were softer, the seats larger, and everything felt calm. She ran her fingers along the smooth armrest, amazed by the luxury. She sat down by the window, smiling to herself. Maybe it was fate's way of saying thank you. She leaned back, trying to relax, but her heart still beat a little faster than usual. A few minutes later, a flight attendant came over and asked if she wanted a drink. Tanya politely asked for water. As the attendant left, she heard footsteps behind her. Someone was being escorted to the seat next to hers. She turned slightly to make space, and her breath caught the moment she saw who it was. It was the same old man from the airport. He looked exactly as she remembered. Gentle eyes, calm face, wearing a light gray coat and holding a small leather bag. He smiled when he saw her, as if he'd been expecting her all along. "Well," he said softly, "seems we meet again, young lady." Tanya blinked in surprise, her mouth slightly open. It's you! I can't believe this," he chuckled lightly. "Life has a way of bringing people together when it wants to." She laughed nervously. "I can't believe we're on the same flight again. What are the chances?" "Perhaps the chances were planned," he said with a kind smile. Tanya didn't know how to respond. She just smiled and said, "It's really nice to see you again, sir. Did you make it safely to your daughter?" "Yes, I did," he said, nodding. "Thanks to you. I wouldn't have managed without your help that day." "I'm glad you made it," Tanya said sincerely. "I was worried you might have missed your flight." He looked at her kindly. "Funny thing, isn't it? You missed yours because of me, yet here we are together now." Tanya laughed softly. "Yeah, I guess that's life." For a while, they talked about simple things: travel, family, and how quickly the world was changing. The old man spoke with the wisdom of someone who had lived a long, thoughtful life. Tanya listened with genuine interest. After some time, the plane began to move and the captain announced takeoff. Tanya fastened her seatbelt and looked out the window. The engines roared and the world outside began to shrink. As the plane rose higher, the sunlight streamed through the windows, covering everything in golden light. When they reached cruising altitude, the flight attendants began serving meals. Tanya declined the fancy food at first, but the old man encouraged her. "You should try it," he said. "It's not every day you get to experience this." She smiled shyly and finally agreed. As they ate, the old man asked her about her life. Tanya told him about her work at the cafe, her dreams of starting her own small business someday, and how she wanted to make her mother proud. The old man listened carefully, nodding now and then. "You have ambition," he said, "but more importantly, you have kindness. That's rare." Tanya blushed a little. "Thank you, sir. I just try to do what feels right." He leaned back and smiled. "That's what makes people like you stand out. You helped me when you didn't know who I was. Most people walked past me, but you stopped." Tanya waved her hand modestly. "I couldn't just ignore someone who needed help. My mother raised me that way." The old man looked thoughtful. "Your mother raised a good woman," he said softly. For a moment, there was silence. The hum of the plane filled the space between them. Tanya looked at him curiously. Something about the way the crew spoke to him, their respect, the subtle nods. There was something different. The attendants called him Mr. Johnson, always with extra care in their tone. Tanya noticed but didn't ask. She didn't want to seem nosy. After a while, she said with a small laugh, "The staff seem to know you well." The old man smiled mysteriously. "You could say that. I've spent a lot of years in and around this airline." "Oh, really? Did you used to work here?" Tanya asked. He chuckled quietly. "In a way, yes. You could say I've had some connection to it for a long time." Tanya smiled politely, not realizing the truth behind his words. "That's nice. You must travel a lot then." He nodded. "Travel teaches patience, my dear, and sometimes it brings you the people you need to meet." His words made her pause. There was something deep in them, something that felt almost meant for her. Hours passed and they continued talking. Tanya told him about missing her flight and how somehow the airline rebooked her for free. The old man's eyes twinkled, but he said nothing about it. He just smiled softly and replied, "Good things have a way of finding good people." Tanya laughed. "That's what my mother said too." "She's a wise woman," he said. When the flight neared its destination, the old man pulled out a small notebook from his bag and wrote something down. He tore the page carefully and handed it to Tanya. "Here," he said. "If you ever need advice or help, call this number." Tanya looked at the note. It had his name and a number written neatly in pen. "Thank you, sir," she said with a grateful smile. "You really didn't have to." "I insist," he replied kindly. "The world needs people like you to keep shining. Maybe I can help in some way." She didn't know what to say, so she just nodded, slipping the note safely into her purse. As the plane began to descend, Tanya felt a strange mix of peace and curiosity. She didn't know who this man really was, but something told her their paths were connected for a reason. When they landed, the passengers began to stand up and collect their belongings. The old man waited patiently, letting others go first. Tanya helped him with his small bag again. "Thank you, my dear," he said softly. "It seems you're always helping me," Tanya smiled. "It's my pleasure, sir. Take care of yourself." They walked out together until they reached the gate area. There, several uniformed airline managers and attendants were waiting, not for her, but for him. They greeted the old man with deep respect. One even bowed slightly and said, "Welcome back, Mr. Johnson." Tanya froze. The tone in their voices, the way they spoke, it was clear he was someone very important. He turned to her and smiled gently. "Take care, Tanya. I hope we meet again soon." Before she could respond, one of the managers approached to escort him away. People nearby whispered, recognizing him. Tanya stood still, her heart pounding. She finally realized what she had just witnessed. The old man she helped, the one she thought was just another traveler, was actually the owner of the entire airline. Her mouth fell open slightly in disbelief. She wanted to call out to him, to thank him again, but her voice caught in her throat. As he disappeared down the corridor, she stood there with the note still in her hand, her mind spinning. She looked at it again and the name, the number, the careful handwriting, and smiled. Maybe life really did work in mysterious ways. Tanya stood at the airport gate, still holding the small piece of paper the old man had given her. People were moving around her, some rushing to meet family, others dragging suitcases behind them. But Tanya stayed still, staring at the note like it carried some kind of magic. She read the name again, Mr. Edward Johnson. The same name the airline staff had spoken with such respect. She whispered it quietly to herself, trying to process everything. The old man she had helped, the one who looked lost and frail that day, was not just anyone. He was the owner of the airline, the very company that had given her that first-class upgrade. Her chest tightened with emotion. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It all felt unreal, like something out of a movie. As she walked out of the airport, the evening sun was setting, painting the sky in soft orange shades. Tanya took a deep breath and smiled to herself. Life had strange ways of rewarding kindness, and maybe this was one of those times. Still, she didn't call the number right away. She didn't want to seem like she was expecting anything. She had helped him out of goodness, not because she wanted something in return. So she decided to go back to her usual routine, her small cafe job, her little apartment, and her quiet dreams. Days turned into weeks. Tanya went back to her normal life, but she couldn't forget that moment at the airport. Sometimes when she was making coffee or wiping tables, her mind drifted back to the gentle smile of the old man and his calm voice. One morning, as she was preparing for her shift, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something inside her told her to answer. "Hello?" she said softly. "Good morning." "Is this Miss Tanya?" came a polite voice. "Yes, this is she." "This is Lisa from Johnson Air headquarters. Mr. Johnson asked me to reach out to you. He wanted to personally thank you again for your kindness." Tanya froze for a second, not believing what she just heard. "Oh, yes, of course. Please tell him I'm happy to hear from him," the woman continued. "Actually, he would like to meet you in person if that's possible. He's in the city for a few days and asked if you could come by the main office tomorrow afternoon." Tanya's heart started beating fast. "Meet him? Tomorrow?" "Yes," Lisa said warmly. "If you're available at 2, I'll arrange everything." "Yes, I'll be there," Tanya said quickly, trying not to sound too nervous. After hanging up, she sat down on the edge of her bed, stunned. The owner of one of the biggest airlines in the country wanted to meet her again. She didn't even know what to wear, what to say, or why he wanted to see her. The next day, Tanya took special care getting ready. She wore a neat white blouse and a soft blue skirt. Her hair was tied up simply, and she put on just a touch of lip balm. She didn't have fancy clothes, but she looked graceful in her simplicity. When she arrived at the Johnson Air headquarters, the tall glass building made her feel small. People in suits walked quickly through the lobby, carrying files and talking into phones. Tanya clutched her purse and walked to the reception desk. "Hello, I'm here to see Mr. Johnson. My name is Tanya," she said politely. The receptionist smiled immediately. "Yes, Miss Tanya, we've been expecting you. Please have a seat." Within minutes, a young woman in a navy blue suit came over to escort her upstairs. Tanya followed quietly, her heart pounding as the elevator doors closed. When they reached the top floor, the air felt different, calm, quiet, important. The woman led her through a hallway lined with photos of planes and old newspaper articles about the airline's history. Finally, they stopped at a large wooden door. "Mr. Johnson is inside," the woman said with a kind smile. "Go right in." Tanya took a deep breath and stepped in. The office was warm and bright. Large windows filled the room with sunlight. Behind a wide desk sat the old man, Mr. Johnson. He looked up the moment she entered and smiled that same gentle smile she remembered. "Well, there she is," he said warmly. "The kind lady who missed her journey for an old man." Tanya laughed softly, still a bit shy. "It's good to see you again, sir. Come sit," he said, gesturing toward a comfortable chair. "I'm glad you came." She sat down, still unsure why she was there. "I've been wanting to see you ever since that flight," he said. "You know, not many people would have stopped to help someone like me that day. Most were too busy or too focused on their own travel plans." "I just did what anyone should do," Tanya replied modestly. "You looked like you needed help." "That's exactly the point," he said softly. "You didn't stop to think about what you might lose. You missed your flight, your plans, and yet you didn't complain. That kind of kindness is rare these days." Tanya blushed slightly. "Thank you, sir. I just didn't want you to be alone." Mr. Johnson leaned back in his chair, looking thoughtful. "You know, I've spent years running this airline, building it from the ground up. I've met thousands of people, but it's not often that someone reminds me what true humanity looks like." Tanya didn't know how to respond. She just smiled quietly. Then he continued. "When I found out you missed your journey because of me, I asked my staff to rebook you. But after hearing more about you from them, how you stayed calm, how you thanked everyone despite your situation, I wanted to do something more." Her eyes widened slightly. "Oh, sir, you really didn't have to." He raised his hand gently. "Let me finish." He opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. "I heard you work at a cafe. You mentioned wanting to start your own small business someday. Is that still your dream?" Tanya nodded slowly. "Yes, it is. I've always wanted to open my own place someday. Maybe a cozy coffee shop where people can relax and feel at home." Mr. Johnson smiled. "Then I think it's time that dream came true." He slid the folder toward her. Inside were documents, ownership papers for a small cafe property and a note of sponsorship from Johnson Air's community support program. Tanya stared at the papers in disbelief. "Sir, I don't understand." He smiled gently. "Consider it a gift. A thank you from me and from life itself. You didn't help me for a reward, but good deeds have a way of circling back." Her eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to say. "This is too much." He chuckled softly. "No, my dear. It's just right. You earned it the moment you chose kindness over convenience." Tanya looked down, her hands trembling as she held the folder. "I can't believe this is happening." Mr. Johnson leaned forward. "Remember something, Tanya. Money can buy tickets, planes, and comfort, but it can't buy compassion. That's what truly connects people. You reminded me of that." Tanya wiped her tears and smiled through them. "Thank you, sir. I'll make sure this gift helps others too, just like you helped me." "That's all I could ever hope for," he said warmly. "Use it well, and when you open that cafe, promise me one thing." "What's that?" "Keep a seat free for anyone who looks lost," he said with a twinkle in his eye. "You never know who they might be." Tanya laughed softly, her heart full. "I promise." They stood up and he extended his hand. Tanya shook it gently. His grip was steady, his smile kind.